For more incredible action figures and collectibles, including the one seen in this review, check out Lindsay's Toy Room at www.lindsays.toyroom.com. Hello YouTube and welcome to Turmoil in the Toybox. I'm your host Aaron Hauser, and today we're going to be reviewing the NECA Pacific Rim 18-inch tall Knifehead. And this thing is absolutely beautiful. This is way more detailed than the 7-inch scale versions that we've received so far. It has a little less articulation, but overall this thing is just beautifully sculpted and was definitely worth the wait. So, first things first, to give you kind of a size comparison, let's show you what Knifehead looks like next to the 18-inch Gypsy Danger. So as you can see, side by side with Gypsy Danger, Knifehead is absolutely massive. And even though this figure is incredibly top-heavy, it does come with the display stand, which is really nice, and it really helps keep this figure on balance when you have it on display. So now that you've seen kind of a size comparison, let's take a look at some of the articulation. So even though this guy isn't as articulated as his 7-inch counterpart, he does have some surprising articulation points that were added for this version of Knifehead. One such detail which I thought was really nice was the added articulation in the claws. So you actually can move the individual fingers now, which you couldn't do on the 7-inch version. Now, one of the things that I was talking about in the range of motion with this figure is he does have a lot of articulation, surprisingly for such a large-scale figure, but they don't flex nearly as much as the 7-inch scale version did. So you do have articulation in the shoulders, forwards, backwards, in and out, and then you have articulation at the elbows, and that rotates as well as flexes in and out. And then you have some real nice ball joints on the wrists, so you can get a bit more flexibility there, which is nice. And then, like I said, the articulation in the claws. And then taking this guy off the display stand, he has articulation in the hips. Now I'm going to be very careful with this because I have heard that these are very fragile, but he does have articulation in and out and forwards and backwards at the hips. Articulation at the knees, which is, they're not like a single joint, it's actually a ball joint for the knee. And then articulation in the ankles. And then at the back, he has articulation in his tail that kind of goes up and down. And then, whoop, that popped off again, has an articulation point on a ball joint on the tail. Now this actually brings me to another really good point, which is right out of the box, these two sections are detached. And it's actually very hard to try to get this joint popped in for the tail. Right out of the box, it's a very tight plastic, and if you actually take a hair dryer to this end of the piece, you can actually flex the plastic a bit so that it'll fit right into the ball joint. And then, even though it does pop out fairly easily, it does pop in just as easily once you get the plastic kind of shape the way it needs to be. Switching back to the front here, he has articulation in his front small arms, and that flexes up and down and then forwards and backwards slightly. Has a rotation point at the elbow here, and then articulation at the wrists, and those just swivel. And then he also has, and this is where you also have to be very careful with this guy, articulation in the head. The head is separate. Oh, the tail dropped off again. The head is separate in the case, and I've heard a lot of complaints about this guy arriving broken in the packaging. Now, while this is a spectacular figure, I gotta be honest with you, NECA really dropped the ball as far as packaging for this. I'll throw up a picture real quick so you can kind of see what the front of the package looks like. And the packaging itself is rather bland. It doesn't have a display window or anything for this figure, and that's mainly because he's completely disassembled in the box. Now, with the way this figure is designed, there are different points to him that are a bit more fragile than others. namely being the hips and the jaw piece right here. Now, an interesting point on this is that while there's incredible detailing in the face, the jaw, which looks like it's articulated, doesn't actually have any range of motion. I thought that was kind of interesting. You can't close the jaw because the tongue is at the roof of the mouth. So if you flex it up, it just goes very barely, it moves up. So there's not a whole lot of range there. Now you can turn the head, and you can kind of tilt it up and down on the neck, but you have to be very, very careful with it. So this is a beautiful piece, and I will say that one of the saving graces for this is the display stand, because without that, this thing, if it took a shelf dive, would be destroyed very quickly. So with it on its display stand, it stands up rather nicely. You don't have to worry about any portions falling off anymore, stuff like that. So we'll get the tail plugged in back here. And this leads to the last little feature of this figure, which is the light up function. Now, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it here, but there's a little switch right on this side, actually. Swing around here. And you switch this on, which turns on the light up function. Now, so far, out of the box, I have not had any issue with the joint quality or with the jaw like some other people have. But the one consistent thing I'm seeing in NECA's products is the electrical work. I don't know why every other toy company doesn't seem to have problems like this, but NECA really does seem to cut corners. Now, the light up function works. Let me switch off some of these lights here so you can kind of see it a little bit better. So the front eyes light up right there, and then the mouth as well. Now when it works, it looks beautiful, and it's a really cool crystal blue sort of coloring to it, and it looks really great, kind of gleaming off the teeth and everything, and the eye looks really nice. But then it does that. So, like I've said in past reviews, I don't buy these figures to have them lit up on display all the time. I buy them because without these features, they should stand up on their own pretty well. The light up function is really nice, but it's not necessary. However, they are charging an arm and a leg for these figures simply because they have added features like this. So with added features like this, you'd think if they're going to charge what they're charging, they would put in a bit more work. But what's really frightening about this is that they really didn't. If you can look on the back here, the cables are just kind of hanging out in the back of the jaw there. They're not properly kind of bound in the plastic so that they're out of the way of either the joint articulation, or so that they're just not exposed so that they wouldn't get messed with at all. But they're not hidden that well, and they look. It just looks very cheap if you see the cables in there. Now, I don't know what's causing this flickering, but right out of the box, this is what it does. I'd be interested to see from any other reviewers if the knife heads that you purchased did this as well. And it will continue to do this for quite some time. It's really weird. I have not tried changing the batteries yet, but I don't feel that that's really the issue, because when it's fully lit, it's very strong and it looks really, really, really cool. However, it's consistently doing this flickering thing. So, yeah. Now, even with the lighting issue, I really did enjoy this piece. And I thought they did a great job with the paint application and the detailing. The texturing on the skin just looks so cool, and they did such a great job with the colors and everything. Overall, this figure is just really, really cool. It's just quality control. Damn it, NECA, seriously, get your act together. That's the only thing that I've seen as an issue with them as a collectibles manufacturer with their last couple releases. It's just the little things, like, you know, maybe having not enough glue on some pieces or too much on the joints and then they snap, or little things like exposed wiring on your big electrical feature, which is supposed to be one of the key points on this figure. But I mean, overall, if you're buying this for display, this thing is perfect. It is so well done, and the addition of the stand on there, to me, was a major win. I know a lot of people think that it kind of looks ugly, but I think that it does the trick, and it looks really, really cool next to Gypsy Danger. So, I mean, overall, I really do dig this figure. This is a very, very cool piece, and I think if NECA could just do a better job with their quality control, this would have been a major win. This would have been a major, major win. But yeah, I did pick this figure up from Lindsay's Toy Room at lindsaystoyroom.com for, I think it was about $140 plus shipping and handling. And even though this guy was packed horribly by NECA, Lindsay's did a fantastic job of making sure that this guy arrived in one piece, to the point that they had a even bigger box. This thing comes in a massive box, but the box that it was shipped in was even bigger and was padded on all sides, so there was no chance of this thing getting broken during shipment, which was greatly appreciated, especially for something that's been said to have been crazy fragile like this figure. So, but yeah, overall, I think this is a huge win for NECA. I just wish that they would get their act together as far as quality control goes. Just the exposed wiring, that really killed it for the lighting feature for me, and the fact that it flickers incessantly. I'm not sure what's up with that. But I really do think that this goes well with the rest of the NECA Pacific Rim line, and if they could just figure out some of the little bugs, this would have been a majorly cool piece for them. So that's about it for this review. If you have any questions about the figure, just leave them in the comments below, and feel free to check out some of my other reviews, including reviews on the 18-inch Gypsy Danger and the rest of the NECA Pacific Rim 7-inch scale figure line. So that's about it. Thanks for watching.